Thank you for tuning in today. We're going to go ahead and focus on our settings today. In order to do this, we're going to take our cursor over to the upper right-hand corner and we're going to select the settings wheel here. You're going to see that some of the settings can be altered down here at the bottom based on the offerings here within our settings. I'm going to go ahead and click here with the left click here on my mouse, and you'll see a lineup of options here on the left-hand side. It starts with general, and then we can scroll down. As you see, database or data right there aligns with data here. So you can just click over here on the left-hand side to get where you want to go very quickly, or we can just use our mouse wheel to scroll down. So in general, our settings and the defaults within the settings are set pretty much optimized for most general users. But for those who want to customize it a little bit, I'm going to run through some of the options here. That being said, I'm not going to run through all of the options. I do advise that everyone spend a little bit of time here within the settings options. Again, general here, we've got language here that can be changed as needed. Generally though, when you purchase your scanner within your region, the settings will be set appropriately for your regions. Preferred output here, STL and PLY. Those of you new to digital dentistry will know that as you scan one time, it produces two different files. We've got a colored file and a colorless file. Those files are exactly the same. Generally, when you send to a laboratory, they're going to pick between the two files to design on, which most often is going to be the STL file or the colorless file. I'm going to scroll down here just to go through some more of these options. And again, we can go into detail later. Enable direct scan workflow. So I want you to see if I turn this on right here, if I click that on and I close out of my settings here, you'll see that now I can jump directly to scanning by clicking this option here. That's going to carry me past the create patient option and the RX form. In general, though, I say unless you're doing demos, it's not the best idea. You don't want to lose track of those patients that you've scanned. Best thing to do is create a new patient the first time they've been in your clinic to be scanned. If the patient's been in your clinic prior and has been scanned before, you'll be able to search them here on the left-hand side or enter their name in the search bar here. Okay, so let's go back to settings here on the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and click there, and I'm going to disable the direct scan workflow. In general, I think that that's the safest. If you're a clinic, dentist, and assistant, make sure you're entering that patient's name. Okay, so enable camera workflow we've got right here. And as I slide down here, as I scroll down, you can see the software version that you're on. We need to alter this a little bit here. And we're going to continue on down. You can see here my scanner is disconnected. This will notify you if your scanner is actually plugged in or not. And we can check for software updates right here. If you're not sure that you're running on the most current up-to-date software, I recommend you click here and it's going to give you the information that is needed. User manual here, obviously something that if you're just wanting to do kind of a deeper dive into the software. Online help, team viewer, this is if you needed any help and you needed our support team to log on, and so forth. And we're going to continue on down here. We really haven't changed much so far. I just want you to see the options and how easy it is to navigate through this. Most of this, we're going to keep it on the way you received your scanner. Include patient name for export path. This is if you're going to export a case, basically save it to your laptop, maybe put it on a USB, upload it to WeTransfer, but you did not necessarily sending to a lab. So this would include the patient's name, which I highly recommend if you're going to be doing this a lot. For instance, if you're printing models within the clinic, it's a lot easier if you can search for that file based on the patient's name rather than just remembering the date or time you might have exported that file. We'll continue down here and just keep on moving. And in general, I recommend you leave the settings, the defaults, for the most part as they are. Again, auto clean raw data. So I keep mine, and generally it's set at 3 months, meaning that within the 3-month window, I'm able to reopen that case and make adjustments to that case. Once that 3 months is up, then I am no longer able to make adjustments to that case. However, the case data will stay within 3DISC application. Right down here, use audio guidance. Those of you who scan often will know that there's that clicking sound as you're scanning. you can turn it on or off. I highly recommend you leave this on because as you're scanning, you obviously have the visual on your screen. You should watch that screen, I suggest, 100% of the time. But having that audio guidance as you're scanning, if you happen to look down, reposition the scanner, that allows you to know if the scanner is still collecting data. So if it goes quiet, you'll know that you lost tracking. You can adjust your audio zoom level here. And from here, you can change basically the audio, whether it's clicks, beeps, or whatever. Default is click 1 right here. As we scroll down, and again, we can just follow the line up here on the left-hand side, you'll see this is where you create a user account. I can either make adjustments to the users that I have already, or I can add a new user here. If I click new user, you'll see that we enter the email address, a first name, and a last name. Then you'll press create. I highly recommend you do not click the password every single time, just because it's going to slow the process down a little bit. And in many cases where there's a lot of people working within the clinic, it's hard for people to remember that user or that password. So I'm going to go ahead and press cancel here. I'll keep scrolling down to user cloud account. By clicking edit here, I can go ahead and create a cloud account. So what you would do in general is click this little plus sign. You're going to select the option create new cloud account. That will take you to an online platform where you enter your information, and then we'll come back here and sync the cloud account. This will also be done in more detail in an upcoming video. So as you enter your laboratories online, and we're going to show you how to do this in a bit, they're called connections. We have to send an invitation to those connections, and that's done online. The first lab you enter will be your default lab. That will be the lab that's always pre-selected within your scan software. However, you'll see here I have multiple labs, and I can come in and change my default lab after I've already added my first lab. Generally, though, the first lab you add is probably the lab that you send to the most, so we'll leave that as is. And then coming down to case setup, we've got the tooth numbering system. So if I click this little drop-down arrow here, in the US, we have universal numbering system, but generally you're going to see FDI, World Dental Federation numbering system here, easily switched between. Most cases, like the language numbering system will be set up due to the region that you're in. And an important thing to note here, you also have the primary tooth numbering system. This is a really great option, and it's not seen often within other scan software. So the shade guide we have within the software is Vita Classic. If I click this drop-down arrow, I can switch it to Vita 3D Master. Whatever I select here is going to be set as my default when I'm creating the case within the software. If you don't want to come back to settings every single time and switch between Vita Classic, which is the most common, or Vita 3D Master, or if you're using a different shade guide, that can easily be entered within the notes after you're done scanning and prior to sending to the laboratory. We'll leave it as the default here, Vita Classic. We can either include the patient's name on the RX form, or we can exclude it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to include both. I really think it's easier for the laboratory to follow which cases are done, which ones need to be expedited or rushed by the patient's name. So we can hide the patient's name within the software, and we can also hide or add the patient's name to the RX form, which I'm going to do. Scrolling down here, I can edit my restorations. So some people may say, hey, you don't offer all the restorations or the brand names that I would like to see. By clicking edit here, you'll see that by clicking the little plus sign, you're free to enter whether it's a different brand name, a different material. We're in the digital world now, and things are changing very quickly all the time, and there's new materials and new options coming to market constantly. By typing the material here and then pressing OK, it will pop up within your RX form when you're selecting your material. I'll go ahead and press cancel there. And again, this is limitless. You can come in here and make the adjustments that you want when you want. Let's say you were just introduced with a new material, come in here and add it to make this easy on yourself. And over here, you'll see on this side, we can actually deselect any options that we don't want within our RX form. So for instance, if I don't want the option of inlay onlay, I could deselect that option right there, and it will no longer be an option within my RX form. But we'll go ahead and reselect that. I think options are really good to have. Again, if you were an orthodontist, for instance, and you just wanted to, maybe the only option you wanted was clear aligner, you can eliminate all other options if that was up to you. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Here we've got edit implants. Click the edit button here. If your implant brand is not listed here, you can add the manufacturer by clicking the plus sign. From there, you can add the system by clicking the plus sign and the connection type. So you're going to find that information on the packaging of your scan body and implants, and you can come here if you're doing or utilizing the same scan body implant all the time, but your system is that you're using is not within our system. You're free to go ahead and add and make adjustments as needed. I'll go ahead and save and close here. And then edit findings here. This is within the scan and tell process, and we'll spend more time on the scan and tell process at a later date. But for here, you've got options regarding findings that might be an issue within the patient's mouth. And the important thing is to understand this is about communication with the patient and regarding issues that the dentist may or may not have found. You can eliminate or you can add different findings. So if you're seeing a common issue within your clinic or a one-time issue, you can add the findings here, press OK, and then the next time you do the scan and tell process, it will pop up there as an option to select for the patient. I'll go ahead and press cancel here, save and close. And again, I'm going to keep scrolling down this page. Over here, you'll see on the left-hand side, we're on lab sheet right now. You can add your institution's name here. So let's say you wanted to add your clinic's name and not just the doctor's name. So as you guys know, when we create an account, most of the time the doctor will utilize their name to create their clinic account within the software. Right here, you would select this option to actually add an institution name. Institution address can be added or changed here. Page size, letter size here, so you can control this as well. And the institution logo, which is a nice thing to upload if you had anything you wanted to upload on the RX room that goes directly to the laboratory. We'll go ahead and scroll on down here. I'm going to leave some of these as is. I think that, again, the defaults are there because most people utilize them the way they are. This option here is for hole filling by turning this on or off. So what happens is as you're scanning, obviously there's going to be some holes in the scan data. You may get all the holes, but in the next scan, maybe there's some holes that are more difficult to pick up that scan data. During the processing period, if this is turned on, this will fill the holes within the scan data. Now, it's really important to note that you do not want holes filled on any area where there's a restoration, where if there's a prep, if there's a margin, if there's a contact of an adjacent tooth, we want to make sure that we've scanned that area very good. Again, this is just for those areas that may not be super vital areas, but during the processing period, that hole will be filled in. Highlight holes while scanning. I think this is a really good one to flip on. We'll get to this in a moment. As we're scanning, and if you stop your scanner, you'll see it. The software actually is going to fill the holes in your scan data kind of a blue-purple color. By turning this on, I think it's a really important thing just because it draws your eyes to those vital areas or those holes. That way you can remind yourself to go back and pick up that data. Right here, 3D projection, whether it's parallel or perspective. This is just the way the model looks on your screen. In general, parallel is the option that is seen in most intraoral scanners, and this is the default. I advise you leave it on parallel. Enable overlay on live view. This is something that is typically off as the default. As a trainer, I come here and turn this on the very first thing we do before I scan with a new dentist, somebody who's new to going digital. This will actually create a blue color as you're scanning in the scanning screen, and you'll look in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see the live image screen. That's how you know your scanner is turned on. If this is enabled, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. What you're going to see is blue in the lower left-hand corner as the scanner gets too far from the teeth. And that's a really good reminder for new users to bring the scanner back down to the teeth. Those of you who have been scanning a long time, It's not super vital that this is turned on, but to you new users, it's a really, really great tool when you're scanning and you're thinking, okay, I'm struggling a little bit. This process is a little bit slower than I want it to be. If you can enable this, it's going to be a reminder to bring that scanner back down to the teeth and continue scanning. Okay, enable color ROI overlay during bite alignment. As you're taking the bite, I think it's really important to see the coloration of the bite span and how much data you picked in. So I advise that this stays on. This will be the default. Enable high resolution finalization. Absolutely, high resolution is always a good thing. We want to give our lab technicians as much data as possible with as much clarity as possible. Enable scan optimization while scanning. This is the default is off, and I typically recommend leave this off for now. This is going to help the scan process work a little bit quicker along with the finalization of the case or the processing of the case. And we'll just scroll on down here. You'll see that these are the scan and tell options that can be utilized while using a mouse pad and so forth. We'll go into everything more later. And here's a QR code here that you would be scanning in order to connect. Okay, I'll go ahead and wrap up there. But again, your setting options are here on the left-hand side. And I'm going to close out of settings by clicking this orange X in the upper right-hand corner. And in order to get to the settings again, you're going to click this little settings wheel in the upper right-hand corner on our home page. You'll see that this is our home page. Okay.